Welcome to the USS MIDWATCH. I'm Brandon Taylor.
Rafael Guzman.
And Wes Mills.
Wes, appreciate you for joining us on the show today.
Happy to be here.
When was it that you joined the Navy?
I dipped into the Navy March 1st, 2008. I remember that day very specifically because that was the day where if I went that day, I could pick any job I wanted. And I left somewhere October 6th, October 7th. I landed in Great Mistakes and went to boot camp. So
I've never heard it called that way. So how old were you when you joined the Navy?
I was 18 when I dipped in. I turned 19 in boot camp like a few weeks after I got there, so I was considering myself 19, joined the Navy at 19.
Where is it that you are originally from?
So south of the foothills on the Kenai Peninsula is a really terrible swamp area. It's a podunk town called Kenai, Alaska, that entire area. I'm from the two towns there, Soldotna and Kenai. They're about 3 miles apart, so it depends on when I was there that we're asking, but that area.
So how was A school? Where was it at?
A school was, right after boot camp, I got stuck in Great Mistakes for 2 months on med hold. So I was that was where I got my first education in the Navy on how it worked. Because you come out of boot camp and you stand at attention whenever you're talking to a chief, and then you're not that guy anymore, and you're actually able to shoot the breeze with him. After that, A school was in Groton, Connecticut. I was there from February of 09 to June of 09 total. That's sub school, A school.
What boats have you served on?
So I was on the USS Chicago from 09 to 2012. Split toured from there. Got in a lot. Questions gonna come up later, but I got in a lot of trouble there as a junior sailor. And then went to the USS Alabama. A lot of second chances on that boat, so I really got some good guidance. Was there from 2012 to 2016. And then I went. I know the short duty questions coming later. I went to the ordnance facility for 3 years. I consider that a sea duty because while I was there, I got a total of 20 weekends off the entire time I was there. And then I went to the USS Maryland, and I was there opposite crew you guys from 2019 to this last spring.
So what short duties have you done? You already mentioned one.
Yeah, I did the ordnance facility, so that was building torpedoes. Well, not really building them, assembling the final assembly of them, and then putting them on the submarines. A lot of work there. And then I'm on the fleet inspector side of the house. So what I do is I actually inspect for nuclear weapon safety and security on board vessels. And then occasionally I get farmed out to do a side inspection here or there for various security purposes for submarines.
So you've been to a couple of boats. Why don't you tell us a good sea story?
Oh man. So I actually had to get input from my wife because she's heard them all. And it was hard. So I have a couple PG-13 ones. I got a couple R-rated ones, but the one that she settled on, hey, you could probably tell this on radio. So last patrol, USS Alabama. I'm a standing torpedo room watch. I'm a rapid responder. For those who don't understand what that means, if there's a fire, I get there first. I'm a senior second class at this time, so usually when I get to the fire, I'm the man in charge. So what I used to do at that time was I would get pretty close to the proximity of the fire where I'm 50 feet away, plug in, get my EAB on. So fire's in the engine room. It was outboard to switchboards to the starboard side of maneuvering. And for those who aren't familiar with that area, it's kind of like a hallway, and on your left-hand side is another hallway, if you will, but it's real narrow. So I stop right there in the tunnel, I put my EAB on, and I come running down to where the fire is. And it's a drill. It's not a real one. And there's an inspector in the way of the EAB manifold that I need to plug into. I didn't have my glasses on, so I couldn't see who the guy was, and I'm just yelling at the top of my lungs. I'm like, move! And I just screaming at this guy, and there was a lot more expletives than that, and he didn't move. And so I slapped him, hose in hand, backhanded him, moved his head out of the way, and plugged in. And I turned to yell at him, and I realized that he's a commander and on the inspection team. And so I figured this is probably a good point where I'm going to stop and not get myself into more trouble. And so I immediately start shouting. I'm like, pass me the effing nifty. Let's go. Move up there. Get the effing hose. And I'm dropping F-bombs left and right. I didn't think anything about it. We get it on the fire. We put it out, simulated, of course, and I leave. And I thought for sure I was going to be in trouble for smacking the inspector across the side of the head. I thought for sure that was going to be the trouble I got in. Fast forward 3 days later, we're getting ready to BSP them off. And I'm in Nav Center on the machine gun, and the Nav Div chief walks in. He's reading the report, and he reads, the nifty operator and man in charge at the scene said the F word 16 times, and then it proceeded to quote exactly what I had said. Pass me the effing nifty, and it was expletive deleted, right? Get on the effing hose, and just down the list, all 16 times, word for word, what I had said. Like there was a dude back there with a tape recorder almost, and I'm like, oh man, and I'm reading the report with him, and I'm like, oh, it doesn't have anything in there about me punching this guy in the face. That's good, right? I'm not in that big of trouble. Cobb comes strolling into Nav Center, and I'm like, oh god, I'm in trouble. And Cobb walks up to me and says, I love that you went at that fire the way you always do, with the enthusiasm and tenacity that you always do. But respectfully request the next time there's an inspection team on board, you turn effing into trucking. And then he turned around and walked out. And as he's walking away, I was like, was that it? And he goes, that was it. That's not even the end of the story, unfortunately. Fast forward 3 years later, I'm in Kings Bay, Georgia, other side of the United States of America. I walk on to report to the USS Maryland, and lo and behold, that commander is the commanding officer of my crew on the Maryland. And I'm like, oh no. And he doesn't remember this altercation. Well, the XO finds out about it. I don't remember how he found out about it, but the XO's like, we have an inspection team come on, and the XO looks at me as I'm reading the plan of the day, and he goes, hey, do me a favor. Don't punch the senior member in the face this time. The captain ended up leaving, and before he left, the ex was like, you have to go tell him that story. So I went and told him the story, and I thought for sure he was going to chew me out. And he goes, honestly, I felt bad that I was blocking the EAB manifold.
And so, rightfully so.
And, that was...
You fucking tore off yourself.
So that was my best story that I could tell online.
All right. Awesome story. That was great.
That was a good one. What's the longest underwave you ever had?
Oh man, so there was a lot of tenacity between you and me when this happened. So it was the we went on a patrol. Something broke. We pulled in early. You guys were mad at us. You went out, did like 80 something days, came back. We grabbed the boat at sea because there was COVID. And I remember because it was like, hey, you guys are going out to sea. I'm like, okay, when are we coming back? Yeah, we don't know.
That was the alleged salt water in the diesel cooler.
Yeah, and yeah, that's what it was. And like I think 118 days later we pulled in, and when we went down, I remember when we went down, there was like nothing on the schedule. It just showed us at sea, like that's all the schedule showed. And we came up after like 80 days like that, and they were like, hey, by the way, you have 3 inspections in the next 2 weeks.
Jesus,
like whoa, and so that was probably the longest one. And it was even longer, I think, because we did 3 weeks of ROM beforehand. So we actually were away from our families for 3 weeks before we came out and got on the boat with you guys. So
that was at Site 6, right?
Yeah,
That's wild, man.
So 100, I think it was like 100. It came down to it like the longest guy, because I got off the barge like 3 days for the longest guys out there were like 140 something days where they hadn't seen their families.
Describe your job to someone who has no clue about what you would do.
So I'm a torpedoman by trade. Of course, I'm an inspector right now, but that's just a temporary thing. So my job is to take all the ordnance that's not nuclear on a submarine and bring it on the boat with the help of you guys, because it takes a team to operate. And then I get to play with the machine gun. So my job is to pick bombs up and put them down somewhere and then clean the machine guns. That's pretty much the simplest way to explain it. I also work on the torpedo tubes as well. So, because you have to be able to deliver those bombs when you need to.
If you can change one thing in the Navy that would benefit future sailors, what would it be?
Yeah, I agree with your previous guests that maybe I didn't think about it. Maybe allowing some semblance of self-care a little more might help. But in my opinion, bring back the dirt nasty fat reenlistment bonuses that were there when Iraq was happening. Like A-gangers getting 40 grand, Sonar Tech's getting $50,000, and that was back in 09, 08, 09. If they could bring that back, I think we'd probably be able to solve a little bit of our manning problem. And if they would make it where it was, if you're in international waters and you re-enlist, you don't have to pay taxes. That'd be kind of cool too. So if they could do that, I think that would fix a lot of our problems when it comes to manning. That, and when there's a pay issue, make it streamlined. Just make it easier to fix it, because that seems to be hurting us quite a bit too.
What is it that your favorite activity is to do?
If you'd asked me this 3 years ago, I probably would not have been able to answer. But chess has made a comeback, and I always thought chess was gangster. And I know it's like the nerd's game, right? But it's not, because if you watch Hikaru Nakamura when he plays the Detroit Hustlers, chess hustlers, there's more trash talk in there than there is at a UFC press conference, man. It's legit. So that's my favorite, is playing chess. Or another thing I love doing training. And I don't like the standard PowerPoint training. I like the hands-on stuff. I love it when we actually pick stuff up and move it, or we operate equipment. I think that's the most valuable training, actual OJT. I love giving that stuff. But my favorite activity of all the things that I could do, and you only get to live it for just a brief period of time, is whenever I get to advance one of my sailors or pin one of my sailors their warfare device. Those are my two favorite activities by far, but you only get about 30 seconds of life with that. So,
But the memories will last forever.
absolutely.
And Far Cry.
And Far Cry.
I don't even know what that is.
The video game we played when we were in COVID.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 4 days straight of playing a video. I'd never played video games in my life, and we're
Until
playing
then.
video games for 4 days straight. And I just watched Davis make fun of me the whole time. You're not very good at this whole driving experience, are you? It was great.
So what's your favorite boat meal?
Oh, chicken fried steak, but in a specific format: steak with the taters on the steak and the gravy on the taters on the steak. And I'll go a step further. My buddy Brian Jones is the best cook I've ever had in the entire Navy, and one of the greatest men I've ever met. And I mean that seriously. He called it a dirt nasty. It was a steak with the taters on the steak, gravy on the taters on the steak, and he put another steak on top of it, and he made a sandwich, and he called it the dirt nasty sandwich. And to this day, because I play chess online, my chess gamer tag is Doc Dirt Nasty, because it was doctoring up a dirt nasty sandwich. So my gamer tag is actually a tribute to my friend Brian Jones, who has the best meal ever on
Hell
submarines.
yeah. You mentioned, the 4 days of playing video games that you never really played before. What would you say are some of the things you like to do in your spare time when you're not at work?
Well, if you look out the window there, you'll see a kind of a junky old F-150. I like to work on her. That's my truck astrology said it best. That's my I like stuff that works. So it's got the old 6 in a row 3 hundo ready to tow under the hood and the 5-speed on the floor. I like working on that. I actually teach my kids how to work on it, and then I do a lot of shooting, like at least once a week at the range, a lot of dry fire practice. I'm just now getting into competition shooting, so I'm going to see how that goes. But yeah, those are the two main hobbies I got, but I think my most important hobby is I like hanging out with my kids. I actually started playing video games after that event. I started playing Borderlands with my oldest daughter and my youngest daughter. We like to watch cartoons together. So Henry Danger, by the way, for those dads who don't know, that show is actually pretty funny.
So what actor would play you in a submarine movie?
Well, somebody stole my thunder on this one a minute ago. I was going to say Stifler, but honestly, I thought about it too. Literally anybody in the cast of Super Troopers. Matter of fact, if you got the cast of Super Troopers, if you got the guys who wrote, directed, and starred in Super Troopers 1 and 2 to do a submarine movie with a similar style, with the angry Mac and the rookie. The rookie would be a nub. It's the same thing. I think you could have a great movie on your hands. That would be pretty standard. Yeah. So.
We're already working on it.
Yeah. Joke's on you. We've actually already been talking about that for about two or three patrols now?
We're more of a TV series is what we're working on.
With
right
the
now.
guys from Super Troopers?
No, just in general,
okay.
making something like that. So we're working on that.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And so we would be underway and something dumb happens. We write it down.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of taking notes. Like,
Like a super trooper style.
so, but yeah.
It is very super
the sickest burn I ever heard was he's a guy on your crew, is a Navy T. I can't remember his name, but your yeoman that you guys got, who's awesome by the way. He they were sitting sticks and I was their dive, and I'm trying not to use names here, but the one guy. Yeah, the Navy T is sitting there talking about his girlfriend. He's always talking about his girlfriend. And nobody really liked it when he did that. And he's sitting there talking about his girlfriend, and your yeoman leans over and he goes, "Don't you mean Jacob's girlfriend?" Jacob's not his real name, but don't you mean Jacob's girlfriend? Meaning Jacob's hooking up with your girlfriend. And he goes, "Jacob's not tall enough to hook up with my girlfriend. She's got a standard." And your yeoman goes, "Must be the only standard she has since she's with you." And and I was like, I sat back in the dive chair and I was like, that is every burn ever about a man in one sentence, except for you're short. Think about it.
Jesus.
Right? You're fat, you're sloppy, you don't read good. like every insult you've ever heard in one sentence. I was like, that's like an octo burn, as they say on that 70s show. So write that one in, put that in the movie.
Lord have mercy.
What's your favorite submarine movie?
Well, we are required under federal law to state down Periscope, but my favorite scene, and I think the most realistic scene in all of submarine movies ever in the history of submarine movies, is actually in the movie Hunter Killer. When the CO comes up to the XO and goes, "Recall everybody to the ship," and the XO goes, "Sir, they're all on Liberty. I don't know where they're at." And he goes, "How many bars are in this town?" And he goes, There's 2. He's like, "Why don't we come with a radical plan where you go to one bar and I'll go to the other?" And I was watching the movie with my wife at the theater, and I looked at her, I was like, "Yeah, it would work. Yeah, that would 100% foreign port. Yep, that would work. That's exactly."
I would say it probably maybe at least 80% of the crew. That would
right,
work.
and then they're all going to know where the other 20% are. So
Yeah, probably playing Magic.
Yeah, that would work.
They're just at the other two
Other-
restaurants.
yeah, the
while
two
they're
restaurants
eating.
down the road.
That's where they're at.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh man. All right. Is there any last words that you'd like to say, or any advice you'd like to give?
So I've noticed this trend lately with young men. We're not able to recruit anymore, and I guess TikTok has had a pretty viral video about this. These young men, "I don't know why I'd want to go die for my country." I remember because when I joined the Navy, we were in the middle of Iraq and Afghanistan, and I get it. Like, you look around the world right now, it doesn't look a whole lot better. But even in the middle of Iraq and Afghanistan, you were more likely to get killed in Chicago, Illinois than you were in Baghdad. You were more likely to die in college than you were serving your nation. So it doesn't really hold water that you would say that you're gonna die if you join the military. That's just not true. I mean, we do have people that do die. Don't get me wrong, and we're not invincible. But it's a false narrative, and it kind of bothers me. I will tell you this. For those of you who are considering joining and are detested because of some TV show or YouTube video or TikTok, it is hard work. I'm not going to lie to you. But I watched a young man, and this is the highlight of my career, and I apologize if I get a little emotional here because it really was like the most important thing that ever happened. When I got to the Maryland, he was so far behind in every avenue. In his physical fitness, in his level of knowledge, in his training, and his qualifications, and he was behind before he ever came to the boat. He barely graduated high school. He ended up getting a GED, and then graduating from an alternative school. And he had a bunch of family problems at home, and not a very stable home. And coming to find out, his parents are illegal immigrants, and it was very difficult for him. And there was even somewhat of a knowledge a language barrier at first because English wasn't his first language. And I watched him go from being behind to just a couple weeks ago, I pinned first class on him. I pinned E6 on him. And in 4 years, I watched him go from the kid who was behind and probably would never have made it out. All of his friends ended up dying in gang-related stuff. And I watched him grow beyond that and become a father and succeed in the Navy. And to give you an idea, everybody's always complaining about the pay. I get it. Like, we don't get paid enough for what we do, but he's 23 years old with a GED, and he's making $70,000, $80,000 a year now. And the only reason that happened was because the Navy took him out of the environment that was unhealthy. And while we may not be perfect, it gave him a much more stable environment to build. And as a result, because of our investment in our time, knowing full well where he was coming from, he is where he is today. And he didn't do it by himself, but he definitely did it because he was given an opportunity that a lot of kids, especially coming from the trailer parks and slums like I did, you're not going to get that opportunity anywhere else. Even if you get a degree in certain avenues, you really got to get into a heavy program that's designed for a specific career field to have that opportunity to come at 23 years old, make $70,000, $80,000 a year. And that's something that you can do in the Navy just through grit and grime and working your butt off. And I think that's something that isn't being told to young men right now. So I would have to say that's probably the biggest piece of advice I could give. You have an opportunity that you will not get elsewhere. And for someone like me, it was like watching myself because I was the guy who got in trouble as a third class. I was the one who was behind. So you can always turn it around.
Understandable. Well, we appreciate you sharing, brother, and we appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And Goose, it's good to see you, even though you live in South Carolina now. So
Technically, I still live here.
Technically.
I stay in South Carolina.
that's fair. That's fair.
Thanks.
Yeah, guys.